So associative arrays come with many, many different names, and your particular programming language is going to call them something different probably, okay? Associative arrays, dictionaries, map, symbol table, hash table. Anytime you see any of those things, now that you know those words, they are actually the exact same thing, okay? Instead of referencing your list with numeric values, reference your list with words, okay? So it can become super useful. So here's another example. Phone numbers in the phone book, just like we were talking about yesterday. Your phone number is unique key. Nobody can have the same phone number as you, because that would make no sense. If two people had the exact same phone number, when I dial that number, is both persons' phone going to ring? Okay, that's totally illogical. Okay, so phone number is a unique key. When I dial the phone number, I get a person. When I dial a different phone number, oh look, I got the exact same person. Can some person have two phones? Yeah, sure. Okay, but the phone number is the unique key. Okay, so just like in an array, you can't have two indices that are the same value. That wouldn't make any sense. In a dictionary, you can't have two keys that are the same. It just doesn't work. Okay? So this is what it looks like in Python. So you declare a variable as a dictionary by using curly braces. Okay? Instead of the square runs, it's curly braces. Once you have that, you can then add information to it. So here we have airports, and we use this syntax to add information. So I'm going to add just a string, and I'm going to assign it to this dictionary with this key. So notice when I'm assigning it, I use square brackets, but instead of putting a number in here, I'm putting in words. And because I'm putting in words, I put it inside quotes. Okay? You could also create your hash table and auto-load it right away if you want. Okay? So the syntax for that is you have your key and you have your value. And you separate them with a colon. Notice in this example, my values are integers, whereas in this example, my values are strings. Okay, so remember the value could actually be any valid variable type that we have used so far. So technically, if you think to like CircuitPython, the value here could be like a spaceship. Okay, it would have an image, it would have a location, an X and a Y, and all kinds of things. Okay, so these values could be any variable type that we're used to. Okay, now once we have this, remember it is a collection of data, kind of just like a list or an array, right? Well, if it's a collection of data, I could loop over the collection, right? And the best structure for doing that is a for each, because then I don't need to keep track of some, like how many items are there and looping through, like, so we can. There is a for each loop, okay? Airports.items, and it has this weird in. So what's happening here is I've entered 4 items into my airports hash table. It's going to loop through each item, and it's going to grab out not just one thing this time, but 2 items. It's going to grab the key and the value for me at a time. Okay? So the first time through, this is the key, and this is the value. Okay? So slightly different looking for loop, but it is the same. Now, these are just variables. I called them key and value because, well, it is the key and value, but they're just variable names. You could call them anything, right? Okay, I could call this airport code and airport name, right? That would be valid too. So it's just going to loop through and it's just going to print them off. Okay, so if we just run my program here, you should see at the very beginning that it just prints out each of the airport codes and the name. And it got those information right from there. Okay? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the user to actually import or input a particular airport code. So the reason I'm using these airport codes, if you've ever been on a trip, every single major airport in the world actually has a 3-letter code that identifies it as that particular airport. Therefore, those 3-letter codes are unique. Okay? So YOW is the one here in Ottawa. That's our airport. Okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is the person's going to input an airport code, and then I'm going to use, and look at this weird if statement. If the thing that they have entered is in my hash table. Like you would normally think that you would have to loop through every one and do a check, right? Which you could do, but this is way easier. Okay? If this code is in my list, then just print it off. Else, tell them that airport doesn't exist. Okay? So I'm going to actually just put a breakpoint here, and we're going to step through and see what's really going on. Okay, so we've paused right here just before we create the airport hash table or dictionary. Okay, so here it is, and notice it's got curly braces, not square ones. So we know it's a dictionary. Okay, this one's going to be created, and we're going to load items into it. Okay, so here it is, and you can see it actually has the key and value pairs already loaded. Okay, now I'm going to load these ones one at a time. So there's my key and there's my value. Now we're going to add the next one. Okay, there's my key and there's my value. So it's just going to go through and add each one of those. You can actually open this up and see them coming down. Get rid of my call stack. There, so you can see them coming down. That might be an easier thing. And notice here, it knows how many there are. Okay, so it can keep track and it knows what's going on. So there's another one and another one. Okay, now it's going to print out all of the airports. So it's going to go into this list and grab one at a time and put it into key and value. Okay, so there's my key and there's my value, and the first time it grabbed this one. Okay, and it'll just print it off, come back, and now the key and the value is changed. Okay, so it's just a for each loop, no different from what we're used to. So we'll just finish those. There we go. And now we go to the next thing. So it's going to ask me for an airport code. So if I put in Ottawa, YOW. So here's YOW, and here is my dictionary, and it's going to tell me if this is true. Does YOW actually exist in here? If it does, it's going to go into my, and it does. Okay? And just to prove that it actually works, I'm going to run it again, and I'm going to put in something that isn't YOW. Okay, so if I put in YOZ, which doesn't exist, okay, and it'll tell me that's not in the airport.